Jason Dady. Thank you for sitting down with us. I'm Steve Owens. This is Alex. It's my son, Blaine. Welcome to Finding STAX podcast.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
So first of all, thank you for opening up, letting us come in and hang out at this beautiful restaurant to talk with you for a while.
Yeah. Just right off the bat, what do you think about the game yesterday?
Such a bummer, you think about game one and we were that close and, losing our best player. And then even last night, we were only down 13 and we were basically running a skeleton crew,
A pretty good, going forward, we're going to be okay.
I think we're going to be
passing the torch.
We're going to be just fine. I'll tell you that DeJounte Murray at the point guard is going to be
amazing.
He's going to be the next Westbrook. So I'm excited about what he's going to bring to San Antonio for a long time.
He has no fear. He plays with no fear.
For sure.
It makes me feel good. Every time I watch him get the ball, I'm like, hell yeah! He's going to try to dunk over.
He attacked the rim a couple times last night.
He gets blocked, but it doesn't matter. The fact of him just going after it,
It reminds me a lot of Westbrook for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, and then you recently you've been having viewing parties, right for the show. How did that go?
Yeah, they were awesome. I was on Iron Chef Gauntlet on the Food Network, and it was a 6-episode season, and made it through the first 5 episodes. But we did these really cool little viewing parties at Shuck Shack, which were just a blast. A chance to kind of watch the show with friends and family and guests and fans per se, and have my kids there and just kind of running around and eating lobster rolls and watching the show. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and because my buddy, one of my good buddies, he just came from there on Saturday, and to go watch the game at my house. He's like, yeah, I just left Shuck Shack. I don't know if you heard of it. I'm like, actually, I have heard of it. Because I'm actually going to go talk to Chef Dady, me and my buddy Steve. And he's like, no shit. I'm like, that's right. And so he's like, that place is the best. He's like, I could drop $60, $80 there, just eating crawfish all day.
It's a fun place, man. It was really kind of created to be just a casual East Coast inspired oyster shack where you could get, you can come in and spend $20 or you can go in and spend $80 if you start pounding oysters or, lobster rolls. But, I love the idea of just going in and getting a glass of wine and some hush puppies and, letting the kids run around. So it really was the inspiration behind it.
That's awesome, man.
So you're a wine guy?
I drink mostly wine, yeah. I think that's wine and gin, maybe some bourbon every once in a while.
Are you a red wine guy?
It depends. I think in the chef world, we get a lot of palate fatigue and kind of beat up a lot of tasting food all day. So I have the tendency to lean a little bit towards more white wine just because, at the end of the shift or end of, the night, it's a little bit more refreshing per se.
Yeah, the bolder reds, I guess they can pummel your palate.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're from Colorado?
From Nebraska, born and raised in central Nebraska. Grew up in northern Indiana for a couple years, and then I moved to Dallas in 1989. And then from there, went to high school, middle school, high school. Then went to Texas Tech University, got my degree in the restaurant hotel program there. And then from Lubbock, went to San Francisco to go to culinary school.
I don't know where you got Colorado from.
I visit every once in a while.
For some reason, I thought you went from Colorado to San Francisco, but okay. What made you pick San Francisco?
At the end, this was what, 1999-ish, somewhere in that range. There's basically 2 or 3 culinary schools at that point in time. It was kind of like the emerging, age of culinary school, and becoming a chef professionally was really starting to catch on. And I just preferred the weather and the lifestyle of the West Coast than the East Coast.
Right, yeah.
So versus going to Hyde Park and going up to upstate New York, I just felt like San Francisco was a better fit. My wife got a great job for a .com when we were out there.
So you were married back then?
Yeah, we've been married. This July will be 20 years. So.
Oh wow, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, we were able to grow up separate and together at the same time because we were both kind of just absolutely head over work and being involved in our professional lives, so that we didn't.
Did y'all meet in college?
Met in college, got married when we were juniors, I think, and it's always kind of crazy to look back and think that now that I employ mostly 20-year-olds to think there's no way in hell that kid could get married right now, and so
that's how I feel when I look at my son. I'm like, that guy is my little boy,
yeah, right.
my little tiny boy.
Right. For sure. I've got 3 now, so I'm going through that process right now.
It never stops.
For sure.
So how was that being on the show and then having to be away from the family? I mean, because you seem like a pretty family-oriented guy. I mean, a lot of the more than half of your restaurants have sandbox or
yeah, I mean, for sure.
oriented.
I mean, being away from the family, is never fun. But like, I think the one thing about for us and the way that we raise our children is like, we don't really raise them in the restaurants. I mean, I don't really bring them up here a lot. I don't want them to think that I have a glamorous lifestyle, because it's far from glamorous. I mean, being a chef and being in the restaurant industry is a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of long hours, and I don't want them, because they see Dad on TV, that they think it's some sort of
like that. It happens to everybody,
right? I mean, there's a lot of exactly. I want them to have a realistic approach to how hard this business is, and so. When they come up here, I grew up my grandparents own a small bar and tavern, and I remember as a kid, like, I'd walk in my grandparents' bar and walk behind the bar and make myself a Shirley Temple, and and just think I was running the place. And so, especially with my kids, they come back here and they're running through the kitchens and getting in people's way, and so, which is great, but I try to keep them away. So I get up every morning and take my kids to school. Doesn't matter if I get home at 9 o'clock at night or if I get home at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's just something that's important to me, that to continue that conversation on an everyday basis, so that even when I am away. But when I'm here, I always put them.
Extra effort.
Yeah, always. Yeah. I don't ever, as much as I want to like just beg my wife to take the kids to school, I always kind of drag myself out to make it happen.
Yeah, I kind of do the same thing, not on your grand scheme. I mean, but I try to find time to hang out with the kids and stuff like that. And I think my good buddy Steve Dave here does the same thing. I think, didn't you used to run a restaurant?
Don't ask me. Ask my son, the chef. Why are you a chef?
I was a chef because, on the contrary note of what you said, I was raised around kitchens. When I was in elementary school, he worked at Papado, the one off of 410. He worked his way up to kitchen manager. So when I would get off of school, because he was still at work, obviously, I would hang out either at the bar, like doing homework and that kind of stuff, or in the back office. So I would get to see the kitchen and how things were being run. And even though it looked hectic and it was crazy, it seemed like a lot of the guys there were having fun because they were enjoying what they were doing.
For sure.
And then he left Papado to open up a restaurant called Cibolo Grill. And I grew up in that kitchen too, doing homework in the back office, sitting in the back room. So just being in restaurants my whole life, I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to cook.
Yeah, and once it's in your blood, you can't get it out,
You cannot.
Yeah, I mean, that's running, just from based on what he tells me, like running a restaurant, just doing one is a pretty difficult thing to accomplish. But you've managed to do 6,
right,
and then working on the 7th one.
Right.
So does it get easier after like the first or second, or how do you first of all motivate yourself to open another one, and then have like the strength and the stamina to keep going and continuing on? You know what I mean? Trying to make it as successful as the first one or second one.
I think for me, like we've never set out to open more restaurants. Like, it's not like a goal or a vision of ours to be like, oh, we've got a 5-year plan, we want to open 3 or 4 more restaurants. Pretty much everything we've done since 2001 has just been an opportunity that was presented that was a good location, or what we felt would be a good location, and a good partnership, and a good business deal. And then we've always opened restaurants that we felt like maybe the market was missing. So try to find a type of place that we would want to eat that San Antonio didn't currently have at that given time, and open a concept there. So for me, my grandmother's 83, and she still literally today is running and operating her little bar and tavern. So, for me, I can look at that and
That's
be
a
like,
inspiring.
well, to me, it's like, if my grandmother can still do it and not, do it every day, then there's no excuse for me not to do it. So I've never shied away from the hard work. I mean, to me, getting up and doing, it's that kind of cliche, but like, if you do something you love, it's not really work. And I'm lucky that I have my wife and my brother as my business partners. I've got a lot of people that have been with me for a long time. I mean, Sam, that's in there in the kitchen right now, she's been with me for, I think, 11 years. So we've got a lot of great, loyal people that have kind of helped build this company, and I'm lucky that I kind of get a ride on their coattails. It's not the other way around. I mean, they put in a lot of work and effort and have
it's mostly the crew around you, right, that kind of helps support everything.
It's all about
just do it by
mentoring.
yourself.
It's all about mentoring, finding talent, and then trying to inspire that talent to do something awesome.
That's awesome. I've always thought that like opening one restaurant and having it be successful is kind of like trying to earn your first million, and then subsequent millions and subsequent restaurants. I mean, it's not.
And by millions, you mean debt, right?
Well, yeah. No, I just mean like they always say that the first million is the hardest, and then
Right.
after that you kind of know the formula.
Right.
So I always figured that if you were able to get a restaurant to be successful, then you
know what to do going forward.
It's you kind of know the little bit of the path. You kind of
For sure. I mean, I was very lucky that my very first restaurant job in high school was an opening, and and so my second job when I went to Lubbock was an opening for Joe's Crab Shack, and I spent 3 years there. Was the assistant general manager. Actually, while I was going to school, I was the assistant general manager for Joe's Crab Shack. But I opened that restaurant. Then I moved to San Francisco. My very first job in San Francisco was at an opening.
Was that manager?
That was at Stars.
Oh, Stars Bar.
And so I had 3 in a row of openings. So for me, when I came to do it, I had already, in a way.
Oh, that's going to be easier.
It was much easier because I just knew
What to
when to be
expect,
patient. I knew when to press. I knew.
What to expect.
I knew that on the first day that you're open, that you're gonna be like, oh my God, we forgot the toothpick dispenser. Like, we gotta go get. It's like you can't possibly think of everything. There's always 1 or 2 things that you're like, oh man, we totally forgot that. Put that on the list to go pick up.
Yeah,
So
I'll never think of that.
for me, I hate to say that it was easy, but it was a little bit easier for me because I had opened 3 restaurants for other restaurant groups, and so I had a little bit more experience doing it.
Well, that, and then plus you're not held like completely responsible or accountable for if something were to fail. Like, because you're like, well, I mean, I wasn't in charge of that. When kind of now you
For
kind
sure.
of are in charge of it.
I mean, I was 24 years old when I opened the lodge. I got a small business loan with my brother and my wife, and we had no idea what the hell we were doing. I mean, we literally were.
Was the lodge first?
The Lodge Restaurant of Castle Hills was our first restaurant. So we
And that
opened
was-
that in 2001,
2001.
Y'all
October
had
of 2001.
Seating times, right? Like everybody ate like at 2
Well,
different times.
we basically had like 6:15 or 6:30, and then like 8:15, 8:30, or 8:45. I mean, trying to, it was tasting menu, so it was 5-course or 8-course tasting menu. So we knew, that it would take
wow, that's
between 2 to 2.5 hours for you to eat, and clearly the goal in the restaurant industry is to get 2 turns. You're not going to do that on a Monday, Tuesday night. In this market, when at this point in time, I mean, hell, in 2001, even up through say 2010, we were an $85 a head restaurant. We were sold out every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is where you make a profit in the restaurant industry. It's everybody's busy on Friday and Saturdays. If you're not busy on Friday and Saturday, you might as well close the door right out of the gate. So it's a matter of kind of managing the rest of the days of the week and understanding how to staff and prep appropriately so that you can be profitable.
Man, so going into a restaurant, how do you come into the themes for it? Like you just have like you wake up one day and you're like, you know what, I'd really want just a badass bowl of pasta,
Right.
or homemade pizzas or barbecue.
If we start at the beginning, like the lodge was all based off of like just quote unquote fine dining. San Antonio was at that point in time was really lacking in kind of the fine dining world. You had Biga on the Banks and you had La Rev, Silo, and they were all south. I mean, all south, and there was nothing north of 410. And so we found that old house. It was just a cool place, and so
It was
that
very pretty.
The inspiration behind that was fine dining, right? White tablecloth, tasting menus. Then we opened Bin 555, which was where we are now, is now Tre Enoteca. But it was really opened as there wasn't a small plates restaurant. Like my wife and I coming from San Francisco, where we just wanted to go have a drink and order 3 or 4 appetizers and get out of town, and get out. That restaurant did not exist here, and so that was kind of the inspiration behind that. And then Tre Trattoria was all because of linguine and clams. Like I couldn't find a good bowl of linguine and clams, and that restaurant space was kind of presented to us, and we were like, we're gonna do Northern Italian food. Was kind of like my original training, at least for the most part in San Francisco, and so I was very comfortable cooking Tuscan-inspired food and pasta program, and so that restaurant was basically created specifically for linguine and clams. Two Brothers Barbecue was like, there just wasn't, again, in this area, there wasn't a market-style barbecue joint. You had Rudy's all the way out at,
just
I-10
spread it all across.
and Ralph Fair Road, out, on the way to Bernie, and in this area, there just wasn't that style of barbecue. So we really wanted a Luling and Lockhart style. Shuck Shack, same thing. There wasn't a place in town to get a lobster roll on an everyday basis, and it's a lot of work, a lot of effort, but for us, that was the inspiration behind the restaurant.
That's cool because I know when some people make music or artists, they're just like, I make music that I would want to listen to
Right.
and stuff like that. So you're just like, I'm making restaurants where exactly I would want to eat, and good thing everybody else does too.
So far, so good. No, you can't win them all. We had a restaurant here called Umaimi that was, I think, the best food that I've ever cooked in my career. I mean, it was
Where
just.
was that?
It was in this
was
location.
here?
Yeah, here at Tre Enoteca. It was a unique situation that we had a year left on our lease, and so we kind of had a little bit of leg room in a sense to risk it for a year. And so we, gave it a shot, and it just didn't go over.
What did you
Kind of
serve
food
there?
was it?
Modern Asian, a lot of Thai influences, a lot of Chinese and Japanese influences. So just one of those things that it just didn't fly in the market, and you just got to live with it and move on.
So do you, now that you're you do Italian foods and then you do barbecues,
Right.
do you travel, have you traveled to Asia or to Italy or anything like that?
I've been to Europe a couple times. I've never been to Thailand or really Asia in general. Most of the time I travel, if I'm going to travel out of the country, I go to Europe, whether it's Spain or France, sometimes to Italy. But I prefer, to me, you don't have to always. Very young in my career, I went to Italy. In my cooking career, I went to Italy. And I took away from it something that most chefs probably don't. And what I took away from it was we have great freedom as chefs in America to do what we want to do. We always have this romance about, I go to Italy and the pasta's awesome. And,
So then the pasta has to be awesome.
I went there and was not impressed. I was like,
You get such a high
Expectation.
This is gonna be amazing. This is gonna be amazing.
Right.
You sit
You build
down
it
and
up so much, yeah.
I could make this.
right. And the other flip side to it is it's changing now, but 15 years ago, they're not allowed to change the tradition. This is how we make risotto Milanese.
Oh,
This
really?
is
So
how
they just have a
it's if you
a step by
every restaurant in Milan, the food was so similar because you couldn't think outside of the box. You did it the way that your grandmother did it, and that's the only way you did it, and there's no other way to
so
do it.
that way it can remain authentic. Is that
In a
probably
sense,
why?
and I came back with such a sense of freedom. Wow, we're really allowed to cook whatever we want, however we want, and I think that had a great impact on the way that I approach food moving
But
forward.
doesn't that kind of have a downfall as well, to where people would be like, "This is pizza," and you're like, "That is not fucking pizza,"
Right.
Or you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah,
Like Domino's and Pizza Hut.
right. Because
Exactly.
it has a negative impact on it. So it's
And
kind
I'm
of
sure that's what they do in Italy. They're like, hey, see what happens when you go outside the box? Look at that shit.
Right.
And they're like,
100%.
they're going to try burgers. They're going to try Italian burgers now. Or
The
something.
reason that everybody loves this type of food is because it's this type of food always.
So I mean,
similar things with sushi. In order for it to be sushi, it has to be this, this, and this.
right.
When you go to school for it, what is it, the first 3 years, you're just doing rice.
Right.
You're not
Just
allowed to
cooking
touch
rice.
anything except for rice. And it's because you have to have it perfect. It has to be exactly the way they want it, or it's not sushi to them.
So how do you call something authentic? What makes it what you would call
I think
an
that I
authentic linguine or something?
I think authenticity is always in the eye of the beholder.
Right, 'cause, I mean,
it's
that's-
we'll have in our business, one person's going to come down and sit down and have our bolognese and say, this is the best bolognese I've ever had. This is amazing. And then the next person is going to be like, this isn't bolognese. Well, you can't, this is not bolognese. So it's who's right and who's wrong. I mean, that's for them to decide. For me, we do it in a traditional style. So it's equal parts pork, beef, and veal, milk, tomato, onion, carrot, celery, garlic. I mean, those are all traditional.
Slow down.
All classic flavors. Maybe I don't make it the way that somebody's grandmother did, but I know that our bolognese is a really great bowl of bolognese. So the authenticity for me, I don't get caught up in that because it doesn't affect what I do on an everyday basis, if that makes sense.
So what about your barbecue approach? Like, I mean, because it takes a special kind of patience with barbecue.
Fat side up or fat side down?
Truth be told, I'm not very good at barbecuing. You know, I've got great pit masters that make our restaurants amazing. Because I just simply don't have the patience for it. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You know, I know that when we
take
first
9-10 hours.
You know, I wanted to do a traditional Central Texas barbecue place. That was my goal. I took my expertise in the food world of saying I understand the science of cooking. We're going to make our own sauces. We're going to do potato salad from scratch. Everything we're going to do it like you would if you were in a quote-unquote chef-driven restaurant. But there's absolutely no mention of Chef Jason Dady really at Two Bros because I don't want it to be considered a chef concept. I want it to be considered a great Central Texas barbecue joint. You know, right now my pitmaster Laura Loomis is just a savant. I mean, she's a 28-year-old female pitmaster savant.
Well, that by itself is impressive. You don't see too many female pitmasters.
100%.
28.
And she just has this natural knack for it, and she has so much passion for it. I mean, she just literally eats, drinks, sleeps, and smokes barbecue.
That's awesome. I want to have that as a clone or something. Just like the mesquite. Just put some redwood.
Oh, it's hilarious if we go do an event or something and we'll go to lunch before the event or after the dinner or have drinks. You know, she's got a very unique barbecue scent at all times. I mean, she's like always talks about, you know, that she can't even walk through the grocery store without like 5 people stopping her and being like, "Oh
her
my
clothes
God,
have
you
smoke
smell
rings."
Very true.
That's awesome.
Is it the smoker's tent jacket?
So let's talk about the balls for that. Like you said, you know what? I want a barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, did you?
How do you do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So how does
where do
you get those balls?
Before I'd opened Two Bros Barbecue, I had cooked 2 briskets in my whole life. Like I didn't grow up in Texas, so like I mean I like to eat it, like but I didn't have really. I mean I would do ribs and things like that, but like doing brisket and understand the science behind brisket is a whole different thing. But for me,
another beast.
The whole thing for me was like, okay, I can figure it out. And, you know, a lot of trial and error. We got really lucky. We found these 2 amazing pits. I mean, when we opened, we just had these 2 big pits. And so a lot of it was just trial and error of like, you know, and we screwed up a lot when we first opened, you know, where we wouldn't time it just right. Our fires would get too low. And
you'd run out of shit.
And I wasn't expecting to be as busy as we were when we first opened. You know, I mean, it was like, you know, we had 3 restaurants at the time. We were pretty well known. You know, we had a lot of confidence. But what barbecue did for us is it opened up a whole nother revenue stream or a whole nother guest stream of like the entry point level when you can get in for $10 all the way up to whatever you want to spend on barbecue is a lot different than most of our restaurants where, you know, the average ticket price was say $25 to $35 all in. And so when you drop down to that $10 entry point, it just opens up your client base to a whole different level, and we just simply weren't prepared for that. So yeah, the first 2 months were rough. I mean, we served a lot of probably tough, chewy barbecue, but the one thing I think that we've always done and done really well is customer service is the most important thing, and number 2, we just tried to get better every day. Like, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Do we need to start them earlier? You know, how can we improve the process and look at it from the muscle texture of it? I mean, we really tried to break it down to kind of the scientific level of like, okay, this muscle needs this much time, it needs to sit, it needs to rest, it needs to do this to break down the connective tissue without and it's funny, somebody, you know, a couple weeks ago was trying to credit me with being like one of the first chefs or the first chef in Texas to do barbecue, and I'm like, I don't know that I deserve that accolade, but I didn't look at it that way. It was just kind of like, you know, it really, for Two Bros, all started with the space. I mean, I drove by this location 100 times because it was in
What was there before?
It was called, back in the day it was like Charlie's Hamburgers or something, and then it was, so it was 3 different things before we got to it. But, you know, I would drive up and down West Avenue because I would be going from here, Bin 555, to the Lodge, traveling back and forth to the restaurant. So, I would drive by that location. I'd be like, and I went in there and ate one day. I was like, oh, this place is a barbecue joint. Like, it's got all these oak
There's
trees.
like trees, right?
You know, it's like we can put.
The location is awesome, and especially when it rains, isn't it like you get like a little river? Right? Don't you get one?
Well, I think they finally have fixed all that disaster. It used to be real bad. So that's all that construction has been going the last 2 years to try to prevent the flooding that we
how did
used to
that
get.
construction affect your business there?
You know, to be honest with you, I think that barbecue is the one business model in Texas. Like, people don't care. Like, they didn't care. I mean, they just will do whatever it takes to get barbecue. And so, to be honest with you, we never really felt much of a pinch, and we did not anticipate that going into it. So we felt very fortunate.
That's awesome.
So I heard somewhere that there was something like, for the way you approach the barbecue and how you wanted to cook the barbecue and how you wanted to present it to a more family-friendly environment, that you were like, I don't want to do like a hipster kind of thing. I don't want any of that.
100%.
Like trying to eat with your pinky up, and like you want to just get messy. I mean,
I mean, we just put everything on an old school cafeteria tray with butcher paper and hand you a couple extra pieces, and you know, we do the little bro packs, so like you kind of don't have to think about it. You can come in and order a 2 bro or a 4 bro or a 10 bro pack, depending on how many people you're dining with. It's more than enough food to feed that many people, and it's just, you know, to me, it's the way people want to eat nowadays. There's a lot of times where you want really good food, but you don't want all the fuss that goes along with it, and that was kind of a perfect fit for us.
Like having to put pants on?
Yes, something like that. Something kind of like that.
Well, and then also, you said something about great customer service, and I've also heard, like, from a person that's gone to a couple of your restaurants, that every person that they've encountered is just extremely friendly, and they speak very highly of you. So how do you?
I pay them to lie.
Right? Is that what it is? Did you pay every single individual? But I mean, where did that come from? Like, did that start early on? Where
I think for me, my rule always has been and always will be, like, just be genuine. Like that's the thing I want to preach to people when they walk and they work for us. Like, I don't care what color your hair is. I don't care what tattoos you have. I don't care what piercings you have. I could care less. If you genuinely are happy to come here, then genuinely be happy to take care of the guests. And if you're not, there's a lot of other places that would love to have you. But when you walk in the door here, like, you've chosen the hospitality industry, so be hospitable.
Yeah, I can't.
And just be genuine. And there's so many times you go to restaurants and you're an inconvenience to them, and it blows my mind because they could walk out the door that instant and go do something that will probably make them happier. Go be happier. Like, don't come in if you hate it. It doesn't make any sense to choose this industry and then not understand that you really are here to make sure that people have a great experience.
All right. Well, you're doing an amazing job, so that's great.
Why San Antonio?
2001. What was it? Early 2001. My wife and I had moved back from San Francisco to Dallas, and we just were like, I had grown up there, and we were like, this just is not for us. Like, we just were not happy here. My wife's parents had moved to Fair Oaks Ranch.
Okay.
We came to visit, and we're kind of like, hey, this is a cool little town. It reminded us of, you know, it was a big enough city to where we didn't feel like, you know, that we were still living in a big city, but it also has always had that little small town feel. And then when we started looking at the restaurant market, we just felt like it was a huge opportunity to get in while we were young and probably have a little bit of better chance at survival versus going to Dallas or Austin.
Right.
You know, Austin was going through a big .com bust, and so that wasn't really a marketplace that was thriving at the time. And we just really enjoyed the city, and we love it here. I mean, we couldn't be happier to be raising our children here, and it's still the same town. It's a small town that's a huge city, you know, and so it's great.
Yeah, and then plus the cost of living is not, well, I mean, it's getting up there, but still. I mean, it's not as bad as Dallas.
Right, for sure.
And Austin, like you said.
Yeah, I think it's real estate-wise, it's probably a lot more doable than, you know.
Even though it's going through a
Dallas.
huge growth right now, it's still nothing like you're seeing in Dallas or Austin. Not even remotely close.
Right. Hi, it's me, Alex, host of the Finding STAX podcast. I just wanted to take a moment in the middle of this wonderful episode and say thank you for tuning in. I know it's old school, right? But it's true. There are literally thousands of podcasts out there, and you could be listening to any one of them at this moment, but you aren't. You chose this one, and I'm truly grateful, so thank you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And if you enjoy what's being played in your ears this far, why keep it to yourself? You gotta spread the word. If you have a few seconds, please take a moment to rate the show and write a little whimsical review about it. Or you know what? Maybe you hate the show, but just know I don't hate you. I love you. I love you very, 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 very much. But you don't have to take my word for it. Yes, another old school phrase.
Hey there, Randy Jason Sklar here, and you are listening to us on the podcast Finding STAX.
Hey, this is Bill Watterson, and you're listening to Finding STAX. And if you're us, then what the hell's wrong with you? And how the fuck did you get this fucking message?
Be sure to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram under the name @FindingStax. Or if you really want to get saucy, email me any sorts of complaints, concerns, praises, rants, what have yous, to findingstacks@gmail.com. And for additional content, you can visit www.findingstacks.com. From me, Steve, Dave, Alexa, and Suri, and everyone here at Finding STAX Studios, thank you. Now go on, enjoy the show. Can I just ask you, and just be completely honest with me? Do you think you could have beaten any of the master chefs?
I was super.
Chefs?
I certainly was bummed that I didn't get the opportunity. For me, getting beat when I did with the dish that I had,
And then I think it was for zest.
No, I know.
Do you think that's what?
I'm certain it wasn't for zest because the dish had like a lemon zest oil drizzled over it.
I saw
at
that
the very
I was
last
like,
second.
What do you
and
need that?
And they actually didn't show that in that episode, but in the finale in episode 6, there's about a little 2-second snippet where they actually do a close up on that salmon dish, and I'm literally doing the lemon zest oil over the whole dish, and we just chuckled and laughed. No, I mean I was the only one that never was in. I never
got the battle.
I never went to an elimination battle, which, it's a bummer, but hey, that's how it rolls. You can't. I did a great job. I'm proud of the food I cooked. I had all the confidence in the world that I could have beat those 3. I did know I had talked to Stephanie, and she had told the only thing I knew watching the last episode is that she told me she made fish noodles, which I thought was a huge risk, but I didn't know the outcome or anything like that, and so I was eager to see how that battle went. Yeah.
Well, see, and then because my wife and I were watching the show religiously, and we're pulling for you. And then the plate that realistically, it put you out,
right,
was just the same noodle. No offense to that chef, but
who was Sarah?
Yeah, the girl with the short blonde hair.
Sarah Grunberg.
Yeah.
Did she make pasta every single
She made
round?
pasta every single time.
Everything
and then the
she did was
ravioli.
pasta, right?
My wife was like, "But you don't like ravioli. You don't like pasta." And I'm like, "No, I like pasta. I just if you're gonna be an Iron Chef or something, you got to kind of think outside the box, not just stay in your
even
wheelhouse."
Mario Batali doesn't make pasta every single time he fights.
But it was just like disheartening. I was like, "Come on, you gotta give our boy a chance or something." Not
it
just
was
the pasta.
It was
a ravioli. Or
it was funny because it's clearly disappointing. You're there, working your tail off, and
because honestly, you want to win.
I felt like
right?
I felt like I deserved to make it to the opportunity to battle Stephanie, but it was funny that once I was eliminated and I saw the secret ingredient for the next battle, which was eggs. I had just did like a pretty egg-focused dish, and I was like, man, where would my brain gone, because it goes by so fast. Your thought process has to basically be formed immediately, and so it would have been interesting to see what would have happened because I had just finished a, three egg style dish.
Right, and then they have like dinosaur eggs, right, that they were using. I'm like, so do they give you any kind of like a prep? Yeah, like a heads up of
really.
like a general idea of what you could expect?
No.
Like the 5 ingredient thing?
No. Every single time I would say that you got a few minutes to kind of think once you saw, just to reset cameras real quick, but other than that,
you just kind of do it on the fly?
You have to think completely on the fly. There's no books, there's no recipes, or like, and my philosophy going into it was whatever my first thought is, that's what I'm rolling with, and I'm not changing that course because the time goes by so fast. 30 minutes, the 30-minute challenges, I mean, it's just like you blink an eye and it's over.
Once you've started, you don't have time to.
You cannot change
your mind
gears.
and
So
start
it was
over.
like, and I was lucky that I didn't really screw anything up either. You know, like I didn't have any major mistakes. I didn't burn anything. I didn't, you know,
Right.
I didn't cut myself. So,
So did you didn't do any ice creams or anything, did you?
no, I did the liquid nitrogen.
Is that really
Yeah,
the
it
first time you used liquid nitrogen?
No. I had liquid nitrogen here at Bin 55 for years, and so I was pretty comfortable with grabbing it and using it, and
Because what was it? The coconut that you made it up
Right.
with the coconut that looked amazing.
It looked amazing.
that was the one dish that all the other chefs were like, "How the hell did you do that in 30 minutes?"
You're like, I don't know. Right? Because didn't even the judges say that? They're like, I don't know how you did this, but that's awesome. I mean, you kind of. I mean, I know it sucks to be like second runner-up or whatever you call it, but I mean, I think you put up a hell of a fight.
Oh, thank you.
You're an Iron Chef in my
Right.
eyes.
I appreciate it.
So how did you get selected to be on that show?
I had been talking to the Food Network and a production company about the possibility of a show, and they basically asked me if I would be interested in this show first, which, you know, clearly the answer is yes. I mean, when you get that chance to be a 1 in 7 shot, you know, you say, you know, where do I go and how fast can I get
I
there?
mean, even
So-
the next Iron Chefs wasn't 1 in 7. It
Right.
was like 1 in 14 or
Right,
something.
exactly. Yeah, the odds were
they're
significantly
not very
better, and it was great because I mean, I'm fairly well known here in San Antonio and regionally and across Texas amongst like the food industry. But you know, once you get outside of that bubble, you're
They're like, who?
I mean, it's like there's 1,000 chefs of my caliber across the country that you might not meet or ever get to hear about, or you know, that don't get the right media opportunities. And so for me, it was great just to showcase the city of San Antonio and really kind of continue to push.
That always makes me happy when someone or something good happens and it's like from San Antonio or
Right.
something San Antonio. I mean, I'm a hometown. We're all hometown kids.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
You've been
and-
here long enough. We'll
Yeah,
call you,
yeah.
We'll call you
I get
homeboy.
an honorary pass today.
Exactly.
And so that was a very important aspect to me because I know how hard, you know, I've worked as a young chef and entrepreneur trying to be successful and get San Antonio on the map, and you know, it's been a struggle, but now it's kind of like finally starting to come around, and this show, you know, is significantly made a difference in that for sure.
To be fair to San Antonio, we're already on the map.
Yeah.
You just have to look really, really,
I
really close.
that's
Yeah,
that's
it's right below Dallas and Austin.
That's a great. I actually like that line there because I do hate when people, you know, I get a lot. They're like, "Oh, thanks for putting San Antonio on the map." I'm like, I've been putting San Antonio on the map for 16 years. Like, we're there. It's just a matter of getting it that star a little bit brighter.
bigger,
You
yeah,
know,
exactly.
They used to say that if a restaurant can make it in San Antonio, it can make it anywhere.
Is that true?
They used to say that. Well, it was probably before you got here. Like about 20 years ago or so, they would say that because San Antonio's people will just not go to places.
Right.
I mean, you know, that like they don't really suffer too many fools as far as restaurants. If they have a bad experience once, they might never go back,
Right,
and
for
they'll
sure.
tell everybody. So for a while, that was a big thing. Like, try it in San Antonio. If it works there, then you can do it elsewhere also. But that was a thing for a while. You cooked for the president?
yeah, I was fortunate that I was able to cook for Obama in an event. Did an event for Joe Biden.
Were those here in town?
Biden's event was here. Obama's was in Austin, which was a little bit of controversy because there was a few Austin chefs that weren't very happy that a San Antonio chef was in their turf cooking
So
for.
how did you get selected to do those?
We had just done some events in the past for. It's kind of a unique dynamic of like these inner circles of random people you might meet, or you know, a client you might do an event for, and then that turns out that client is, you
Friends
know,
with somebody,
or a part of the DNC or a part of the RNC. You know, I mean, we've done stuff for kind of, you know, we don't care if it's red or
If food's not
blue,
political.
but their money is green, and so you know, for me, we don't pick
And so is
sides.
their exposure.
Yeah, we don't pick sides. We just, you know, we're happy to load up a ice chest and some cooking devices and do our best to make you happy.
So did he say anything like, Mr. President? Like,
I will say that
this is all right.
I will say that that he doesn't eat anything in front of anybody. That's like,
Oh, really?
yeah, like, so they only eats like behind the scenes because
You know what? I like that.
for obvious reasons, you know, and most politicians won't eat in front of you because they don't want, you know,
Right.
They're going from your event to another event in an hour and a half, and they don't want, sloppy Joe running down the front of their suit. And so
There doesn't need to be a picture of the president with barbecue sauce on his nose.
Exactly.
Or with his mouth opening all weird.
Right.
Think about what happened with George Bush ate in front of people. He almost died.
Oh, right. The pretzel.
He
or
was
something?
choking on a pretzel or something.
He's always just a pretzel.
I will say that he, there was something special about the way he held himself and the presence that President Obama had. That was something I'll always remember.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And Joe Biden has really, really nice teeth.
Joe Biden looks like my father-in-law. He cracks me up. So what did you cook for both of them?
For Obama's dinner, we did like a backyard barbecue. So we actually roasted a whole pig. Did a bunch of kind of like light seasonal healthy salads because that's a lot was their initiative.
Was this at somebody's house?
Yeah, it was in a backyard of a private home. And then a bunch of hors d'oeuvres.
How'd they feel about you digging up their backyard? Or
I did
use a giant
I did a
China box?
cajachina. Yeah, I did the cajachina. So,
I thought you buried it in the ground.
but that was an interesting process because the way that the Secret Service works, you have to leave basically for 3 hours prior to the event so they can do their sweeps. And so I had to request a variance so that I could stay there. So, but basically,
So you could watch the food. You're like,
basically, I was like, I have to watch this pig, or we're not going to have dinner. And so,
because the China box is a fickle mistress.
Yeah.
I mean, that fire goes.
I
out
had
or
to leave
whatever,
for an
and
hour, but I could come back by myself, and then the rest of my staff came back 2 hours later. So, the Secret Service is no joke. I mean, there's something incredibly impressive about the amount of effort and time and energy.
The people on
And
roofs
focus.
And stuff?
I couldn't even explain to you. Like, it was bonkers. I mean, there was, when we got there at probably 8 o'clock that morning, there was, a guy jogging down the street, like a guy from the
And they
neighborhood.
tackled him?
From
They
the
turned
guy
him
from the
around.
neighborhood.
They said, "I'm sorry,
And you're like,
yeah."
you don't think anything of it, and then 6 hours later, that guy's inside. Wasn't from the neighborhood, and he wasn't just jogging. He was basically just a Secret Service
shit.
guy pretending to be a jogger,
scouting.
just jogging the neighborhood,
Oh.
with headphones on, looking like he was just another, homeowner.
That's badass.
It was crazy. We were like, what?
He's like, this is my house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bonkers.
That's pretty crazy. Would you do it again?
Oh,
I mean,
man.
regardless of
you
what
can't beat
sitting
that.
president,
You
but-
can't. Yeah, you can't beat that publicity and that honor. I mean, that to me. What
Hey,
better honor could
did
you
they-
be like to be able to cook for the president of the United States? I mean, that's pretty
Did they
cool.
pay, or was it like, well, you should be honored?
No. Well, there might be a little bit of that, but no, they definitely pay.
Who wants to cook for free?
Well, it's amazing. They probably could get every meal for free, but
Probably should.
I think that because of conflict of interest, they probably, they definitely paid their bill.
That's awesome.
So you mentioned earlier something about Food Network and talking about shows, like
Right.
they wanted you to be a part of a show. Is that still something that's in the works for you, other than the Gauntlet?
We'll see what happens. I mean, when you're on a show of this caliber, you have a contract. I have a timeline that, anything I would do or would be asked to do has to be through their portfolio. For me, I'm not really thinking about it too much. I mean, if they call
Great.
and it's a great opportunity, for sure. I mean, clearly we would want to jump on that and do something. But there's nothing specific in the works right now. I think at this point in time, the show just ended. I think the idea is that they play it out, let it play out, see what the ratings are, see if they bring back Iron Chef America, which is the goal for everybody, and then see what happens. So
maybe hopefully you get another opportunity to get that. What is it? Not a gold jacket, right? It's just the black jacket, white jacket.
I think all of them kind of have different jackets.
They
I
are
think,
different,
yeah, I
right?
think they
Because
all.
there's not it's not like golf or something.
Right,
It's
for
the same.
sure.
The main thing is that it says Iron Chef on it.
Right.
And that you are an Iron Chef.
Right. I mean, it would be. I mean,
Fuck yeah,
it's
it'd be
funny
cool.
because it's hard to be like, it's hard to sit here and be like, I'm not obsessing over wanting to be an Iron Chef, but I mean, I know that I'm built. I know that the way I cook is built for success in that realm and in that world, and there would be, to me, it's the Mount Everest in the cooking world. There's no bigger honor, no bigger title than being an Iron Chef, and so if they were to call me tomorrow and be like, hey, we need you back, I'd.
But you definitely have to compete for it. You can't
100%.
You can't just. They're all like, "Hey, we saw you.
Right.
You had enough zest."
Yeah.
Even
usually
Bobby
try-
Flay
No,
had to compete for
there's
it.
no doubt that they will always make you fight for it, or win something for it, because that makes it more legit. I mean, if the final episode, Stephanie had to fight 3 different Iron Chefs and come out on top with the score, and she was able to beat all of them by 2 points combined, and now she has that honor for the rest of her life, and that's something
Well,
that
and she beat them at their own specialty, right?
Yeah, 100%,
That's what they kept saying.
Yep.
Which is that a route that you would have taken? Like, I mean, you would, or
I
were you
think
going to
it-
try to be like more strategic?
No,
about it?
I went into this whole thing, and even the way that I did it, I had nominated Stephanie on the episode that I had won, was like, she had the weakest dish of that week. I wasn't playing politics.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
on there
'Cause,
to
I
play
mean, that's how it's
politics.
supposed to be done.
To me, if you had the best dish, or the second best dish per se, I wasn't going to put you in the bottom because I was afraid. You can't be afraid to cook against anybody. That shows no. That's not Iron Chef. I mean,
Right.
and so for me, I would have done it the exact same way. I mean, if you're gonna wear the title and have the
Yeah.
crown, you got to beat them at their own game.
So, are you good buddies with the what's that Asian guy's name?
James?
Shota Nakajima
Yeah.
from the show.
That's
from the
exactly
show.
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to say it exactly like that, too.
Because he kept referring to himself like he wanted to be the youngest Iron
Right,
Chef.
right, for sure.
How old is that guy?
That guy
27.
terrifies
28.
me. He is so good.
Yeah.
He's pretty creative.
I mean,
He
that guy
was-
is amazing.
You know the thing
Because
about
he even mentioned something like, I think I'm going to steal that. Like,
Yeah.
it was like some technique or something. I don't know what it was.
he did like this weird skewer thing, and I was like, oh, that's
Oh, with the foil.
great.
Right?
Yep.
That's the guy I would have been afraid to fight.
I think that when it came down to
And he had the most experience during the battles.
Well, and that was the thing. But I think it also, he was just mentally worn out by the time that he went
He
into
hit
it the
like
third
3,
time in a
right?
row. I mean, but for him, it's the greatest thing that could have ever happened because he got the most exposure
Yeah, he did.
of any chef on the show. I mean, he was in every episode from start to finish.
Yeah.
But, so when you're talking about exposure and when you're talking
He
about
won.
television,
Yeah.
he won the exposure world. And he's got social media just loved him because he's just playful and he's super sweet and super talented. His food is very simple and very clean, very classic Japanese. And so when you put that up against something else, his food would just sing because it was just so,
Bright colors. and
yeah,
stuff
it was
like
just it was just beautiful, simple
Yeah, because
food. But
don't you eat with your eyes
Right.
first? Is like
your eyes
so.
and nose first.
Yeah, the presentation
100%.
is pretty much like.
And then
the
if you have
half
somebody
of it.
else that has like this big, vibrant punch in your mouth face and flavors that maybe they're not 100% balanced, and his food is just clean and simple, it was just. That's why everybody was so afraid of him, is because his food
Did y'all
was
get
so.
to taste everybody else's
No,
food?
no, we don't get to
See,
taste anything.
That'd been
man.
awesome. Like, I'll taste that. Like,
No, they don't want any controversy. They don't want you to be like, "What? What do you
oh,
mean?"
right. Like, I had more zest.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going back
Yeah.
to the zest thing.
The only thing that I tasted and I was like, I didn't care. I was like, I had to taste it. Was when Stephanie did the chicken liver ice cream.
Oh yeah.
Because I
that-
was like, where we were watching it from, the ice cream machine was kind of right behind me. So like, as soon as they did hands up, I went up and just took a little spoon of it, and it was.
You sneaked it?
It was freaking amazing.
Was
like,
it really?
When I tasted it, I was like, oh, she won. Like, I knew she was going to beat Shota because that ice cream was literally that good.
It's chicken liver. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it was
just-
amazing.
It's
I can't
ballsy-
explain. I
it's
can't
ballsy
explain
to
it,
use
but it
the,
was so good.
It's
Right.
ballsy to use the ice cream machine because, like, if you're a fan of Iron Chef, like, there was a pretty long stretch where whoever used the ice cream machine lost.
Right.
Like, I think Trout ice cream was where
Right.
it started.
Yeah, the trout ice cream is always the most famous one, and I think that her chicken liver ice cream will go down kind of in history, like as one of those dishes that when people talk about Iron Chef, they'll always bring
And
up
then
chicken
you
liver
and you
ice
can
cream.
actually say like, yeah, it was badass.
It was
I tasted it.
unbelievably great. I mean, I'm serious. When I tasted, I was like, oh, this is in the bag. She won because it was so good,
That's awesome.
and it was so different. And it was it pushed the envelope so far.
So do you try to, like, with your own restaurants, do you try to think outside the box and try to come up with something like a new plate or an off the menu kind of? Do you have any things like? Because I know that there's one. I don't know if I'm supposed to say it or not, but
What is it?
it's let me see.
I don't even know it.
It's a soft shell crab sandwich.
Oh yeah, over at Shuck Shack. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not always on the menu. For me,
It's like the whole shell is
Yeah.
in there. And then my buddy tasted it, and he's just like, you can't even taste any. Like, it just falls right off. It like melts in your mouth. I'm like, the shell.
Do you pull off the?
yeah, we pull out the bottom flap, we cut out the gills, cut off the eyes and then take off the corners of the shell per se. Just so you, I mean,
Points, yeah.
but
Because it's really just a crab they caught it during the molting.
Right.
Right?
100%. They're one of the greatest delicacies in the world. I mean, you just
Yeah,
can't
they're
beat a soft shell
fantastic.
crab.
They're really good.
I think that at this point in my career, I am a little bit more conscious of like giving people what they want versus me giving them what I want, if that makes sense. Like,
Which is interesting since you started all of these because it was a restaurant you wanted to eat at.
I mean, I've pushed the envelope so far so many times
So
that
you kind of play. You're gonna play to the fan instead.
well,
for a
you
while?
just to me, it's you gotta. If you look at a menu and it's got 30 items, you're always going to have your top 10, right? That are almost always, no matter what is item 11 through 30, it's very hard for those items to get into the top 10. The general public decides that. You don't get to decide that. So, if you're sitting there spending 10 hours a week trying to reinvent the bottom 5 dishes because they're not selling well, you're better off just trimming your menu to 25 than to 30 because... does that make sense? Like,
is that like
no matter what you do,
people are always going to sit down and order like
demographic
fried
is-
calamari. I mean, I'm using that as we don't have that on our menu, but like that's like
It's
an
a fan
Italian
favorite.
restaurant that's probably at the top 10 seller in every Italian restaurant that sells it. So I don't really try to push the envelope as much as I did when I was early in my career. A, because I don't have to. I'm established. Our restaurants now, people when they go to Tre Enoteca, they want the bolognese, they want the linguine and clams, they want the Tuscan ribeye. So
that sounds amazing.
how am I going to
Kinda
push the
hungry.
envelope with Italian food? That's not what people are going there for. That's not what that restaurant concept is for. And
So is that why you create another restaurant?
pretty much always.
Right? To kind of like open up your creativity.
Right.
Not that this isn't creativity. I mean,
Right.
creative anymore. But they found their
100%.
their whole. You know what I mean? And
Right.
then you got to go make another.
I used to get very frustrated when we had signature dishes, which is
Yeah, and just like you said, who, whenever you say like it'll say like chef special or something, and you said that, who comes up with that? Is that you
Right.
as a chef or?
it depends. Like for the most part, I typically.
Chef Stackery.
Chef Stackery.
Did you come up with that?
No, well, that's more like that's what I like to drink.
Oh.
Like, so they like, or I would show them the technique behind it. So like, I would be like, hey, this is exactly how I want you to make the daiquiri. This is, I want it shaken super hard. I want little floaters of ice on top. So a lot of that might be considered more technique than ingredient driven. All of our chefs have the ability to do whatever specials they want. Like to me, I want to give my chefs the ability to be the creative ones now, right? So I don't want to have to come in every day and write 3 specials here and 3 specials there and 3 specials here. It's just that wouldn't work out with our
Good
business
God.
model
You
nowadays.
have to come up with 21
Right.
specials a day, man.
And so they're pretty much in charge. Our sous chefs or chef de cuisines are basically in charge of their everyday specials, and then but I'll work with them on some stuff. We do a lot of catering too, so like I get a lot of my creative outlet more on the catering side. Like we do a lot of high-end catering, like classic old school tasting menu stuff where we might go into somebody's home and do 5 courses for 20 people or something like that, to where I can kind of really do that thinking outside the box, pushing the envelope.
That's awesome.
Having fun with
I'm
stuff.
gonna have a birthday party soon. I'm gonna see what will $500 get me.
He's like a phone call.
Yeah, I'll
phone call to
call
wish you
your,
happy
I'll call your son. Tell him happy birthday.
A high five, an emoji high five.
And a Pringles.
It's a text. It's not even a phone call.
Yeah. It's like,
It just says HBD.
right, it's all half. You gotta pay extra for the letters.
Acronyms for everything. That's too funny.
Okay, so but you are going to be opening up a new restaurant,
Right.
Downtown San Antonio, and that's at an older restaurant location.
It's
right,
in the
Luke?
lobby.
6
of
years.
the-
Well, the space is 6 years old. It's at the Embassy Suites on Houston Street,
on the river.
on the Riverwalk, 2 stories, floor to ceiling. It was formerly Luke Restaurant by John Besh, and I could not be more excited. I think it immediately becomes our flagship restaurant because it's it's downtown. It gives us the access to the people that are coming to visit San Antonio.
Tourist demographic.
But it gives us the tourist demographic, it gives us the convention visitors, but it also gives us, Houston Street is kind of the one street downtown that's still pretty heavily locally
I like
supported.
it because it's like there's like local coffee
It's
shops
the
that are
theater
there.
district,
I mean,
too.
yeah, there's theaters on there.
You got the theater district. You got it's just a perfect spot.
It's a
We're
great location.
Very lucky to have been given this opportunity, and we're going to do a modern American chop house. I'm not a huge fan of just calling it a steakhouse because I don't think it's going to be, what everybody would think of as a steakhouse. And so, although it's going to have a great variety of steaks and seafood, and it will be a la carte style, kind of like an old school chop house would be, but a lot more like bright, vibrant colors. With all those windows we have in there, we don't want it to feel old school and clubby. We want a good, solid, simple bar program. It's not going to be focused on mixology. Basically we're doing, 14 or 15 classic cocktails. We're going to do tableside Caesar salad. It's just going to be kind of a martini cart, just kind of. But I also design.
It's a date night kind of restaurant.
The design, it'd definitely be a date night place or a business meeting type of place, But it's also going to be designed, and the feel will be like, hey, you can come in jeans and a t-shirt and feel 100% comfortable, or you can get dressed to the nines and go to the theater afterwards. And so, I just kind of envision it being a steakhouse the way that people want to eat nowadays versus most steakhouses feel like they're all 10 years old when you walk in the door, and so we're pretty stoked about that.
So y'all have pretty high expectations for this.
I have, yeah. I mean, for me, for us, we always put far more pressure on ourselves than anybody else ever could. But I think that this one will be the highest profile restaurant we've done in probably, maybe since the Lodge. It's going to be a big deal.
So it's like come full circle, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to have to actually work my ass off a lot again. I'm probably going to be back in that 90-hour a week kind of mentality. And so I've been pretty spoiled, with, having great chefs and sales teams and GMs that, I can go home and put my kids to bed every once in a while. And so I've already
So you're like, Daddy's going to be on
I've already
hiatus a little bit, baby.
Well, and that's the thing. My kids, we have honest conversations about it. Like, hey, our whole thing is always like, hey, Daddy's not going to be at home in April because that's event season and catering season. And so, I was like, but I can almost take off, 2 or 3 weeks in July if I ever wanted to, because it's just such a slow month for San Antonio restaurants. And so, we work hard, we play hard, we try to find that balance. But this summer, it just depends. We're going to try to open by August 1st. Could be September 1st, but we're really pushing hard to get open by August, which is a very aggressive timeline to think that we're going to try to do it in 2 months. But I think we can make it happen. If the design meeting I have later today goes well, and the one I have tomorrow morning for the booths and the design, it's all going to come down to booths. Get them built, get them designed, and get them into place. Everything
Because
else.
you're not going to use the same.
They were
kind of bulky.
We're using a little bit of both. So, but it'll be a completely different feel and look when you walk in the door for sure.
From what I remember about Luke, they had, a completely different take on open kitchen.
Right.
They did not have walls; they were all windows.
Right. They have a fishbowl kitchen basically. It's upstairs. It's a center kitchen, but it's all encased in glass.
Now, are y'all going to continue utilizing that?
Yeah, I think we had, we've played with the idea of taking it down, but I don't like the idea of, because of the environment that we're going to be in, the type of place we are, I think it's better to have it quiet, because I think it'll be a pretty noisy kitchen. Like, if you're doing 350, 400 covers a night, nobody wants to hear that in the kitchen. That's a lot of barking, a lot of screaming, a lot of.
I can see that you guys have an open kitchen here. Do you prefer open kitchens, or do you think it's a little bit more difficult just because you really have to keep an eye on the way your employees are talking to each other? And
I think it's a double-edged sword, but I typically prefer it. I actually think that it makes better cooks because they know that they're being watched.
They're on display.
And what we try to teach them is listen, you're the expert back here, but we also want you to be engaged. I want them to be engaged with the people sitting at the chef's counter. I want them out there talking to them, and couldn't be happier with the way the layout is. I think the biggest difference is that when it was Luke, they didn't do a lot of their dining upstairs. They sat most of their guests downstairs.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to do a little bit of the opposite. You've got these great windows that overlook the Riverwalk upstairs, so we really want to utilize that.
So are you going to be doing do you cook anymore?
Yeah, not every day, but yeah.
So are you going to be head?
It's a difficult question. For caterings, I cook almost everything.
Right.
I'm not coming in here and mincing parsley. You know, like I don't have to mince parsley anymore.
You've earned the respect.
Well, I just have a team. We have a system. We have a brigade. I mean, that's the kitchen brigade is for a reason, and that's, you know, for me, my number one focus is 50% restaurateur and 50% chef now. I mean, I have to be very high level. I'm managing 6 places, building a 7th. I have to motivate my GMs, my chefs, and then it's their job to motivate their cooks and their line cooks, and that's how the system works. I can't get lost in the fray. I have to be above the fray and inspire the leadership team, and by doing that, that translates all the way down the hill. So,
with all these plates that you're juggling, the TV chef, several successful restaurants, you serve the president, like what opportunity or facet of that life has held your interest the most? Like, what do you enjoy the most out of everything?
I think the thing that I enjoy the most is I love mentoring, like, my leadership team or my management team. Like, that, to me, that's the most important. Like, that's the real sign of a great chef. And I still take a lot of pride in that, of, like, being able to help, you know, or helping mentor and train somebody like Stephen Bowers from Feast and Battalion and Rebel, or somebody like Robbie Nolan, who went to the French Laundry and now runs the Boudreaux's restaurant group, or Mark Weaver, who owns Periphery, or Emilio Solis, who has King's Highway. Like, all these people that I've had maybe a small part in helping mentor them, you know, to be leaders and to be their own chefs and their own restaurateurs is a great honor for me, and that's what I love to do. So
That's a fantastic answer.
Sort of like how Greg Popovich mentored half the coaches in the NBA right now.
100%. I mean,
Right, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Like when you see who all the great teams are.
They're
They used to
they're
play
all-
with the Spurs,
right.
or he used to be an assistant coach for the
Right.
Spurs.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
it's definitely. I mean, that to me is hopefully when it's all said and done, that'll be my legacy.
Your legacy.
You know, that we really had an important part of helping shape the food culture of this city and push it forward, and you know, and just like you said, it's that coaching tree. It's the whole. It's the mentoring tree that's important to me.
Tell me about your knife set.
Pretty varied. I have 2 different main sets. I have a brand called Masanobu, which is out of Japan. I've been using those for probably 9 or 10 years. Steel is kind of the same steel that they use in like Ferrari drive shafts, so it's like a super hard, clean steel, but not and gets super sharp and actually holds like a really nice edge. And then I use a subsection of a Shun brand called Kai, which is the parent company, but there's a French chef named Michel Bras, 3 Michelin star chef from southern France, that has like his own specialty line within that, and so a little bit thicker steel, so but amazing knives, and I love their little paring knife and their serrated knife. Those are pretty much the 2 ones. I'm obsessed with this new brand, this custom knife maker named they're called Carter knives, that are just ridiculous. But I mean,
Where are they out of?
I think he's out of Oregon. It's Oregon or Washington. I don't know which. He's up there in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe he's from Portland, Oregon, I think. And this guy's knives are just like the sexiest, but they're not.
That's how you know it's a good knife, when you can call it sexy. when you call anything sexy, that it's not like a woman or something.
So I have like a little.
Why don't you get with that guy and have him make you a line of knives?
Well,
I mean, if Guy Fieri has his set of knives, why can't Chef Dady?
Well, the problem with it is, like, I have probably, in my knife box right now, I probably have 20 knives. You know, so, like, to me, to go spend another, I mean, his knives are, you know, can be
Until
between.
you lose one, break
yeah,
one,
until I
you don't
break one,
need
and I
any
don't
more
even need
knives.
one. And so it's kind of like.
I meant.
But he's saying like for
I
Rupert.
meant team up.
Well,
and sell
this
a
guy
Jason
is
Dady
like,
knife.
he's probably one of the top 3 or 4
okay.
custom knife guy. He doesn't need my help. I mean, I don't need his help. He doesn't need my help. I would love. He kind of like made a joke. Well, he didn't make a joke, but he had offered that if I won Iron Chef, that he would give me one of his knives, and I was like, I won episode 4. Does that count?
You did win.
That's awesome. If you reach
Does
the
episode 4
pinnacle
get
of
me a discount?
reach the pinnacle of chefdom, I'll give you one knife.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah, you know
on,
you're
man.
good when you have to win Iron Chef to get one of his knives. So.
There seems to be some controversy in the culinary world over the past few weeks about avocado hand.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this?
I saw an article about it. Yeah.
Does it make you shake your head and think about how everybody's an idiot?
Well, I think it's just what it is. It's just common sense. I mean, more than anything, it's just common sense. I mean, it's funny because that's how I cut my avocados, and every time I do it, I kind of, once I saw the article, I kind of chuckled. Like, oh, this is pretty funny. But listen, it's a sharp utensil designed to cut things, and if you're not careful, it will go right through the avocado and into your hand. So when using it, be careful. That's the only advice I could give anybody.
If you use a knife, be careful, or anything sharp. Anything sharp for that matter.
Is hot. Knives are sharp.
So
Exactly.
If you weren't chefing, is that a word?
Sure.
The art of making
It
food.
could be a verb.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you weren't
Chef,
chefing,
yeah.
if you weren't chefing, what could you see yourself doing? I mean, do you have any other
I think I would
passions or?
I would either be a professional poker player, or
Oh, yeah.
because I just love sitting at a poker table for 10 hours straight and like not talking to anybody and just like,
Everybody else's money.
right. And I love fishing. I could do bass fishing or poker player. That would probably be my two sub jobs if it could ever come to that.
Yeah, you could do one in the off season.
Yeah, right.
Because there's an off season for bass tournaments.
Right, for sure.
You just go to
When you say
Vegas.
you're free in July, you can do something there and then.
Yeah, I have my wife says my famous thing is like, hey, in like 2 weeks it's gonna settle down, everything's gonna be fine, and so like I say that every 2 weeks for the last 10 years. I'm like,
Eventually you'll be right.
In 2 weeks,
Yeah, you will be right.
in 2
someday.
weeks it's gonna slow down. We got a couple days to hang out. Like I think in 16 years of being here now I try to take Sundays off, but typically maybe one Sunday out of the month I'll have to either come in for a brunch or go do a private event or something. But I think I've stayed at home 4 times in 16 years, like for a day. Like it's not in my blood. I wake up and I'm like, I gotta go to work. I gotta go to the restaurants. I've gotten a little bit better now where maybe it's not from 8 in the morning until
It's only like
11
a few hours or
12.
something.
Yeah, maybe now it's like, but I drop my kids off every day at school, so like I'm here every morning by 8:15. So, but it allows me to get on my computer, get my
Is this
emails
where
knocked
you're
out.
home base from? This one?
I kind of office out of here. I mean, I'm mobile in a sense, but like, there's just this is the closest restaurant to the kids' school, and so if I come in here in the morning, I office, and then I can decide where I need to go. If I have to go to Two Bros, it's right around the corner, and then if I jump on 281, it takes me 12 minutes to get to Tre or to Shuck Shack, or Ben.
That's awesome.
Oh.
Very cool.
Well, I don't have any more questions.
Awesome.
I mean, I really appreciate you doing this for us.
My pleasure.
I know you're a busy guy. Well, you're kind of doing some things here and there, right? So, but no, we really appreciate you, taking the time out of your busy day, and I wish you all the best, and I know you're going to be successful in all your barbecues, and I'm excited to go try your new shop. What is it called again?
Range.
Range.
Yep.
I'm excited. We'll,
Yep.
we'll be there for date night. Me and Steve, and maybe Blaine.
Perfect.
For date
We'll show
night.
for date night.
Perfect.
when we found out that you were going into that space, and then right after that, I found out that you were going to be on Iron Chef Gauntlet. I told my wife, well, clearly he won
Yeah.
because that's an Iron Chef
Right,
level
isn't that what's supposed
spot.
to happen, right?
And she goes, well, maybe he's just a badass and he can handle that spot. I was like, no, but clearly he
No,
won.
there was definitely some timing coincidences that happened with that. I had a lot of people that were, I mean, at the other flip side, like, you're contractually obligated not to say anything, and and you want people to stay engaged. I knew how far I made it. I knew I made it through 5 episodes.
So it's like you didn't know that
like,
you made it.
so-
Just kidding.
I
So
wanted.
you were aware of how far you made it.
I definitely, if it was to my advantage in a negotiation to be like, keep watching, dangle the carrot, as my one of my chefs always says. Chef, you're always dangling that carrot out there. I'm like, hey, you gotta dangle it. For sure.
Cool. Well, we do want to let you go.
Awesome, guys.
We
Thank
got-
you
we
so
got
much.
meetings.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much, Chef.
Take care. Appreciate it.
Chef Dady.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. It was my pleasure.
Thank you, sir.